Hong Kong. Months of anti-Beijing demonstrations have plunged the city into its worst recession in a decade. The economy is expected to shrink by 1.4% this year and by as much as 3% in 2020. Now the US has passed legislation that could threaten the special economic relationship Hong Kong has with Washington. US President Donald Trump has signed a law requiring Washington to annually confirm that Hong Kong's special freedoms are being maintained by Beijing. A second bill bans the export of crowd control measures like tear gas and rubber bullets to Hong Kong police.
For US President signed on the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, that's the remarkable achievement of all the Hong Kongers. With the courage and determination of Hong Kongers to fight for freedom and democracy, to start the protest movement on June, it just encouraged world leaders around the world and politicians aware that it's time for them to stand with Hong Kong.
Washington says it could sanction China if its troops were to invade Hong Kong to curb the protests. China's called the US legislation a serious violation of international law.
The US has been disregarding facts and distorting the truth. It openly backs violent criminals who destroy facilities, set fire to infrastructure, assault innocent civilians, trample on the rule of law, and jeopardize social order. Its very aim is to undermine Hong Kong's stability and prosperity, sabotage the one country, two systems practice, and to disrupt China.
The new American law comes at a delicate time. Trade negotiators from the US and China are on the verge of finalizing the first phase of an agreement to end a year-long standoff over tariffs. But Beijing has accused Washington of bullying and has warned Washington that countermeasures against the bill are coming. Mark Klusener, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Jeffrey Tucker in Savannah, Georgia. He's the editorial director of the American Institute for Economic Research. Welcome back to the program, Jeffrey. Now, as we know, Donald Trump has signed into law this bill at a time when he was really trumpeting progress on perhaps signing the first phase of a trade deal with China. Do you think this new law could derail that whole process?
But I don't think there's much to go on here with his trade legislation thing, this trade bill. I think it's mostly cosmetic anyway. The other thing to remember is that Trump had very little choice but to sign this legislation. The sympathy for Hong Kong in the U.S. is very high. Everybody loves Hong Kong in the U.S., so it wasn't as if Trump had any choice about it. But I think Trump's still going to want some kind of cosmetic deal. But I don't think that deal is going to amount to much. It's certainly not going to repeal a single tariff, and it's not going to get Beijing to buy more grain, which is what the U.S. wants.
Interesting. We've seen markets in the US reach record highs session after session in recent days on the hopes that perhaps the two sides will reach some sort of interim agreement. So you don't think that they'll sign anything substantial?
No, I don't think so. I think it will make the stock markets temporarily happy, but I don't think it's going to be actually anything substantial. It's certainly not going to change existing tariff arrangements, very tragically in my view. Trump loves tariffs and he wants to keep them.
It's interesting you mentioned the bipartisan support that this bill enjoyed in Congress, and you suggested that perhaps Donald Trump was a reluctant signer of this new law. Why is it then that Hong Kong enjoys such widespread support in the US? Is it because these protesters are simply anti-China?
Yeah, I think our connection is a little bit weak, but I think we've got long historical reasons for loving Hong Kong. It had a free economy long before China began to free its markets, and it's always been a beautiful example of the power of free enterprise in the U.S. The U.S. has always celebrated Hong Kong, so that's going to continue. Everybody loves Hong Kong in the U.S., and China can't be surprised by this. This is just a part of American culture. So Trump had absolutely no choice. We also have to remember that Trump has praised the Chinese system of government. He called President Xi a a dictator for life, and he said he wished he could be the same thing. So I don't think Trump is necessarily genuinely sympathetic to Hong Kong. It's just something he has to do as a Republican president, actually.
We heard the kind of expected response from Beijing saying that they would threaten to retaliate to this new US law. I mean, what could they possibly do you think?
Nothing. There's absolutely nothing that China can do about this law. I understand why they made the statement, and that's totally understandable, but it's just a lot of rhetoric. It's a lot of bluster. There's a lot of frustration about Hong Kong right now, because we do need to understand what these Hong Kong protests imply. They are challenging fundamentally the entire Chinese model of economic development and political control. The combination of free enterprise plus totalitarian politics, these Hong Kong protests are putting that all at risk. And the Communist Party in China cannot permit that. But right now, all they can do is talk rhetoric. What's much more important to China right now is some kind of relief from this preposterous trade war, which is actually causing recession-like conditions right now in China. So there's a lot of panic right now in Beijing, a lot of it.
Now, we're hearing a lot of reports that Chinese troops are amassing on the mainland near the Hong Kong border. Do you think a law like this will actually deter them from doing anything drastic, from perhaps invading Hong Kong?
I truly cannot imagine that there will be anything remotely like an invasion of Hong Kong right now. I think Beijing has a lot of rhetoric and a lot of bluster, but they're using stepping up to political violence, or much less ending the autonomy, the semi-autonomous relationship there. I don't even think that's a question right now. China will let Hong Kong go before they start using troops. And if the U.S. actually starts a genuine warlike conditions there, I don't even think that's in the realm of possibility. There will be some compromise made to fix the Hong Kong situation so that the economic conditions both economies can continue to grow together. Economics is more important than politics in this case, and I'm so grateful for that, because we need to keep the peace. We need a deal, and we need the peace. That's more important than anything else.
Okay, Jeffrey Tucker in Savannah, Georgia. Lovely to get your thoughts as always. Thank you.